Donald Trump's latest comments about NATO have sparked a major backlash, and this CNN panel wasn't letting it slide. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Let's watch the clip, and I'll share my thoughts as we go before giving my final take at the end.
Allies are livid at Donald Trump tonight, not over Greenland, but his claim that NATO troops avoided the front lines in Afghanistan. Even Prince Harry is calling him out for it. We'll debate next. President Trump is angering America's allies over new comments he made, once again undermining NATO.
I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
Now, in the wake of 9/11, the United States became the first and so far the only NATO member to invoke Article 5. The alliance sent thousands of troops to help the United States fight its war in Afghanistan. And Trump's remarks have outraged lawmakers across the political spectrum, as well as veterans and families of those who gave their lives. Tonight, Prince Harry, who served in Afghanistan, also pushed back, writing in part, quote, "Thousands of lives were changed forever. Those sacrifices deserve to be spoken about truthfully and with respect, as we all remain united and loyal to the defense of diplomacy and peace." President Trump, he's the president, but he seems to not have very much grasp of recent history or not so recent history. But in this case, it is astoundingly disrespectful to our allies to suggest that they did nothing when they actually did quite a lot.
Well, I think we can do two things here. I mean, we could and should acknowledge when our allies have been there for us, and they have been there for us. But there's nothing wrong with holding our allies accountable, which I think is part of what the president's been doing, particularly with Europe, where we've seen they have moved closer into the arms of China, where we have seen them become more and more reliant on Vladimir Putin for their energy needs. And for years, they've been saying they were going to step up and put more money into their own defense and national security, and they didn't do it. And it took President Trump coming in to get them to do it. So I can kind of understand some of the frustrations that he brings forward.
What that got to do with him lying?
Lying.
He lied. He said that they didn't. He said that they didn't help out. They helped. He said that they haven't been there for all. Let's say everything you just said is true.
I started my statement by saying I think we could and should acknowledge when our allies are there.
I know. All right, but then so that's the first part. This is what I like. So the first part is and then the second part is where you launder, the second part of your sentence, you launder what he said as if there's some universe which it's sane in, and it's not. There's no.
I didn't launder anything. I stated facts.
You
laundered it because all three things that I said were facts.
President Trump, he came out and he said something that's demonstrably untrue. But let me tell you why it's not that bad in the grand scheme of things. He's the president of the United States. The stuff that he says matters. We should care as an American community whether or not he's saying things that are true and whether or not he's saying things that our reputation benefits from. And he's not doing that. He's acting crazy.
I think it's particularly harmful when it's statements that undercut the sacrifice that a lot of these families made. And it was great to see Senator Tom Tillis list out the countries and the amount of people who died. UK, 457. I mean, I know that he has continuous beef with NATO, but at some point we have to say, okay, a line has been crossed, and we're talking about young men and women who died and sacrificed themselves when they didn't have to for this country.
Let me just play what one of those families said, a family who lost or whose child sustained serious injuries in Afghanistan.
It's disgraceful, it's disrespectful, it's hurtful. These are the rantings of a child. This is somebody who is deflecting from other things that he said, and it's not acceptable in a supposed leader of the free world.
It is, to Van's point, not even remotely in the same universe of things for Trump to have complaints about whether NATO is, committing enough to their defense, or whether or not they are too close to China, maybe they're taking Russian oil. It's not in the same universe as him then using falsehoods to essentially smear people who sacrificed their lives for us, Americans.
Yeah, they died. people died, and they were on the front lines. And so you're right, he did lie. And I wish more Republicans would come out and speak out against him. The crazy thing about this is the second time I have seen a clip in the last sort of 5 days from an ally or from someone essentially saying that Donald Trump is acting like a child. We saw this in Greenland, where he admitted that because he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, that's why he was upset about Greenland and wanted to, at every turn, he is embarrassing us on the world stage. And it is embarrassing that he is now being called a child.
One thing that really stood out to me in this exchange is how quickly the conversation changed once the argument was pushed to its logical conclusion. The MAGA panelists tried to shift the discussion away from Trump's comments by arguing that many Americans feel Europe enjoys generous social benefits while the United States carries a larger share of the defense burden. But then Van Lathan flipped that argument right back around. He essentially asked, so if Europe pays more and Americans end up getting those same kinds of social benefits, are you on board with that? Suddenly, the confidence disappeared. Instead of embracing the implication of the argument, there was an immediate attempt to walk it back. That's what made this moment so revealing. If the point is that America is missing out because it's spending too much on defense, then the obvious follow-up question is, should Americans receive those same benefits? Once that question was asked, the conversation shifted completely. From where I'm sitting in the UK, it's fascinating to watch these debates because they often become less about finding solutions and more about defending a political figure at all costs. Whether you agree or disagree on NATO spending is one debate, but when the discussion constantly changes depending on what's most convenient in the moment, people notice. That's why this exchange landed the way it did. It wasn't simply about who won the argument, it was about consistency. If you're going to make a point, you should be prepared to defend it even when someone follows it to its natural conclusion. In this case, that didn't happen, and the contrast was difficult to miss. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did Van Lathan make the stronger case here, or do you think the MAGA defense had merit? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more political commentary, and I'll see you in the next one.